Chapter 1. Second Chance. Thwack! A sharp kick landed squarely on Liam's stomach, causing him to double over in pain. He was nothing more than a frail figure. "Didn't I tell you to bring more lunch money today? Do you want me to starve, you little punk?" sneered a healthier-looking student clad in a school uniform as he delivered yet another blow to Liam's battered body. Liam coughed up blood, his feeble frame collapsing onto the ground. He lay there, helpless and broken, while the relentless assault continued. "Hey, take it easy, man. Don't go too far," another student cautioned, watching from the sidelines. "Nah, this guy's a pushover, but he can take a beating. Ain't that right, Liam? You're the best punching bag in the whole damn school," taunted the healthier student, preparing for another kick. However, their cruel intentions were interrupted by the blaring sound of the school bell. "All right, let's get out of here. We don't want to be late for that horrible teacher's class. I'm not spending my evening in detention." Staring at her ugly mug again, the group of high school bullies casually conversed, leaving Liam behind in the alleyway, forgotten and discarded. Liam lay there in silence, his body frozen with fear. It wasn't because he dreaded the bullies who had just mercilessly beaten him. No, it was something entirely different that paralyzed him. Just moments ago, he had been fighting for his life, competing for an elixir that was a coveted treasure. But how could he measure up to the other formidable contenders? He was nothing more than a small fry. In the end, he had been struck down without breaking a sweat. But instead of meeting his demise, he found himself inexplicably transported back in time 3 years to when everything began. With each passing second, Liam became increasingly certain that what he was experiencing was real, not a twisted figment of his imagination. There was no denying it, he had miraculously been granted a second chance, back to the days of his high school life when everything had yet to unfold. The reality hit him like a hammer, his heart pounding loudly in his chest. The pain that coursed through his battered body served as a stark reminder of the authenticity of this bizarre phenomenon. Liam was no stranger to pain. He had grown accustomed to its touch. What he wasn't accustomed to was luck. Yes, he had stumbled upon an unimaginable stroke of luck. A wide grin spread across Liam's face as he slowly rose from the ground, his unsteady body teetering as if it could collapse at any moment. But behind his trembling exterior, his eyes burned with a cold and piercing gaze. There was a darkness swirling within, a darkness that would send shivers down the spines of those who had just beaten him mercilessly. "I'm back," Liam whispered, slamming his bloody fist against the dilapidated wall nearby. The impact sent a resounding thud through his body, reinvigorating him. With a slow, determined stride, he then limped out of the alleyway, paying no mind to the school he was supposed to be attending. His home was his destination, just 10 blocks away. Throughout the whole way, despite the excruciating pain, his expression remained fixed in a wide, almost obscene grin. But Liam's smile vanished in an instant as he arrived at the apartment and caught sight of a familiar figure peeking out. He had been so consumed by his thoughts that he had completely forgotten about her. "May." His voice caught in his throat as he lunged forward, embracing his little sister tightly. "She's alive." Liam trembled, holding her delicate figure in his arms. "Brother, what happened? Are you crying? Did they hurt you badly again today?" The little girl lifted her head, her eyes full of pity as she surveyed Liam's swollen and cut-up face. Seeing her brother's wretched state, tears welled up in her eyes, streaming down her cheeks. Liam was rendered speechless. Consoling girls had never been his forte, no matter how long he'd known them. Unsure how to comfort his sister, who was nearly 4 years younger, he ruffled her hair awkwardly. "Let's go inside and talk." The two siblings entered their small apartment and Liam shut the dull, rusty door behind them. It was just the two of them now, alone in their cramped living space. Their parents had passed away a few years ago in a construction accident, leaving them with no one else to rely on. But Liam, with his wits about him, had fought tooth and nail to ensure they received the settlement money they deserved. He was like a scrappy mutt, unwilling to let go of his bone. Although ultimately swindled, he managed to secure enough to sustain them for a few years. With that money, he rented this dingy apartment in a dilapidated building in the slums. It was clear the place needed some serious renovations. But all of that was inconsequential now. Nothing mattered because, in just a couple of days, everything was about to change completely. Liam glanced around the familiar yet unfamiliar surroundings, his eyes brimming with anger and pain as memories of what had transpired, or rather, what was yet to happen, rushed back to him. Clutching his fist, he collapsed to the ground, releasing a burst of maniacal laughter. "Brother, are you really okay?" His little sister blinked, staring at him with a mixture of concern and confusion. Liam's behavior had taken a turn for the bizarre. "Heh, I'm fine, May. Don't worry. Everything will be fine now." Liam rose to his feet and heated up a pail of water, intending to clean his injuries. His hands moved with practiced swiftness as he swiftly tended to his wounds, carefully bandaging the cuts and broken skin. He popped a couple of painkillers which dulled his agony and sharpened his focus. First things first, he needed to obtain that item as soon as possible. Liam checked his injuries once more before slipping into a fresh pair of pants and a shirt. "Brother, are you going back to school? Won't you be late?" Malin asked, her worry evident. "Nah, kiddo. I'm going somewhere else." "Huh?" Malin was taken aback. "The grocery store? But it's not Sunday today." The siblings had established a routine, so Malin couldn't help but be surprised by this unexpected change. Liam tousled his sister's hair, causing her to pout in an adorable manner. "No, I'm heading to the game store. I'll be back soon. Behave yourself." Eh? Malin stood at the doorstep, dazed, watching her brother's figure fade into the distance. "The game store? Since when does my brother play games?" Chapter 2, Preparations. With his hands in his pant pockets, Liam casually strolled into the electronics shop at the corner of the street. "Hello. Can you give me a blood battle game capsule?" "Huh." The store clerk looked up, slightly startled as the customer talking to him didn't look like someone who could afford the high-end gaming capsule. Such a thing cost a fortune. In the last decade alone, games and gaming software had developed a lot, and gaming capsules were now all the rage. These allowed users to log in for hours together without ever having to step out except for maybe to eat or drain their bodily fluids. But to buy Blood Battle, the store clerk could tell that the young man in front of him was not that well-to-do. In fact, he looked like he hadn't eaten anything in a while. So he took pity on the seemingly naive youngster and advised, "Brother, are you sure that this is the one you want? Blood Battle game is actually not that popular. Why don't you go with Violet Garden or Eden's Hold? I think you can earn more money with those games. I also have an account in them, and I am also playing part-time to earn more money." The clerk chuckled awkwardly. He was not that much older than Liam, and he was also in the bottom middle class, so he could empathize with him. Liam patiently listened to the man, but after hearing everything he only shook his head. "Thank you for your kindness. I think I am going to stick with the Blood Battle gear for now." Seeing that he was already set in his decision, the clerk didn't bother anymore. After all, he would also get a nice commission if someone bought that insanely expensive gear. "All right, give me your address. I will set up the delivery. Half the payment now and half the payment on delivery." Liam calmly smiled and nodded. He took out a card that looked like it had only been used once or twice and swiped it on the machine, finishing the payment. Ding! The machine beeped, eating away a big chunk of his settlement money that he had been meticulously saving and protecting. Gaming capsules were extremely expensive, especially the Blood Battle capsule, which was one of the most high-end ones available in the market currently. Their game might suck, but their capsule was top-notch. Why did Liam still buy this one? That's because he knew something that the others still had no idea about. In about 2 days, every single VR game would be inexplicably hacked and erased into nothingness. It didn't matter whether it was Blood Battle or Violet Garden or Eden's Hold. Everything will magically disappear to be replaced by the one and only game, Evolution Online, which could somehow be played with any gaming capsule irrespective of the gaming company that had made the capsule. Several computer experts, hackers from the darknet across the world, would try to rectify the situation and crack the mystery, but in the end, they would all only fail. No one would be able to get even a hint about this mysterious new game, Evolution Online, that will inevitably take the world by storm. However, this was only the beginning. The scary part came after the first major patch, when reality suddenly merged with virtual reality. People who were able to split a rock apart inside the game would surprisingly find themselves being able to do the same in real life as well. Abilities, superpowers, magic, darkness, everything would spill over from the game to reality. However, despite what one might be inclined to think, this would not be a good thing. The world would delve into complete and utter chaos and plunge into an apocalyptic bloodbath. Governments would be replaced by guilds, and kingdoms and corporations would scramble behind them trying to salvage whatever value that their money still had. It would be the onset of a completely new era. Liam gripped his bank card tightly as memories of the terrifying future flashed past his mind. He still had no idea why or how he was able to somehow come back to the past, but now that he was determined to grab every single advantage that he could get. This was why he had selected the best gear currently available, even though it cost him 5 times what the other capsules cost. This was worth it because many of the other capsules had malfunctioned, unable to handle the strain. Some even got mentally injured because of this. So he did not want to take any chances. He could buy one set for his sister too, but he did not want her to play the game just yet. There were several dangers lurking within the game, and he was not strong enough to protect her just yet. He also did not want to split his focus. It was best for her to enter the game when he first managed to get a foothold. The delay might set her back a little bit, but there were other advantages in doing so. After giving all the remaining details required and quickly finishing the transaction, Liam stepped out of the shop. He didn't bother explaining his actions to the store clerk. The man had indeed been kind to him, but he had lost faith in humanity a long time ago. After dealing with the matter of the game capsule, Liam then walked over to the nearby consumer store and prepaid a chunk of money for electricity and higher bandwidth internet. He then headed to the grocery store and purchased a huge bulk of supplies and dry food items that didn't need refrigeration. After a few hours, he was finally done with all the preliminary preparations and started heading back home. Liam looked at his card that somehow felt lighter now, and a small chuckle escaped his lips. He was betting everything he had on himself. Some might find it impulsive, but he knew that this was his only chance to survive and change his and his sister's fate. Chapter 3. Log in. Brother, is this really all right? Maylin peeked at Liam, who was busily cooking a feast for the both of them using their one-top stove. Of course it is. Both of us are still growing and we need a lot of nutrients. It was only a small studio apartment, so she could clearly see her brother humming and sweating while he cooked a variety of dishes with a smile on his face. The smell was so delicious that she was not even able to focus on her homework. Since when did her brother learn to cook like this? With almost a visible drool on her face, the little girl stood up and walked over to Liam. Brother, what about school? You haven't gone to school for the last 2 days? School, ah? Ha ha ha. Liam wanted to laugh out loud and say how useless the educational institutions were about to become, but instead he just ruffled his sister's head with a smile. Your brother is dumb. So I will count on May to study well and help me in the future. Ah! Don't say that, brother. The little girl pouted, puffing her cheeks. The two siblings then joked around and chatted for a while before digging into the feast. It had been a while since Liam was able to enjoy meals like this. He lived like a mongrel in his last life. He was weak to provide for his sister, and in the end, he was also not able to save her when terrible things happened. He would never let all those things repeat this time around. A cold glint appeared and then disappeared, his lips curling into a smile again. The duo chatted and laughed for a while, after which Maylin went back to her homework and Liam sat next to her staring outside the single window of their apartment. There were still 6 more hours to go. The patch and the override of the current video games with Evolution Online would happen this evening at 4 p.m. sharp. Liam gazed at the game capsule, which now occupied half of their living room space. Though the inevitable future still terrified him a little, he also couldn't help but feel a vague excitement and anticipation coursing through his veins. He had already sort of formed a plan as to how he would go about everything, so without much to do, he kept an alarm for 3:30 p.m. and decided to take a small nap. But unfortunately, he was far too excited to fall asleep, and the sun was beating down with a vengeance. Though they were on the ground floor, they still felt the burn of the summer heat. Liam clicked his tongue and he got up and took out a couple of ice cream sticks from the freezer. He gave one to Maylin and sucked on the other one for a bit. He saw his hard-working little sister immediately go back to her studies even when eating the ice cream. He couldn't help but smile. If you are working hard this much, then I guess it is about time I begin as well. Liam had initially wanted to start everything when the patch began, giving him a little breather, but since his hard-working sister was putting him to shame, he decided to do some stretching at least. Removing all clothes from his body except for his boxer shorts, he began doing a unique series of exercises. His body was still a bag of skin and bones as he had only been eating well for the past couple of days, so all his stances ended up being very wobbly and awkward. "Brother, you are going to break something." "Ah!" Malin shouted out in alarm. First of all, her brother looked like a skeleton doing exercises, and secondly, what the hell was with these completely random poses? Despite getting worried looks from his sister, Liam continued with his workout for another half an hour before finally melting into a child's pose and relaxing a bit. Since his body's condition was the absolute worst, this was already the maximum that he could do. He did a series of breathing exercises to settle his tiredness, and when he was done, it was already 3:50 p.m. Liam knew that it was time. Around 4 p.m. his time zone, the game was live. May come here." He waved his hand and called his little sister. "The door is locked now. Don't open it for anyone even if they knock. Don't go out. Don't go to school tomorrow. There is food in the fridge in case you are hungry. If you are bored, just watch TV. Do some jumping around or dancing once in a while. Don't continuously just be sitting. You should also not touch the game capsule. Be a good girl and sit here and wait for brother, all right?" Liam ruffled her hair and carefully instructed her. He knew that his sister worshipped him and never once failed to listen to him, which was why he trusted the little girl and didn't rent another apartment for the game capsule. After giving her a few more do's and don'ts, he then quickly popped into the capsule, opening it and closing it after him. Inside was pitch black, which was good because otherwise the players would be overwhelmed with a feeling of claustrophobia. The capsule was designed in such a way that the players felt as if they were floating in nothingness, at least until the game was logged into. Once they log in, their entire consciousness would be in the game and they wouldn't feel anything related to the capsule their body was lying in. There was still a couple of minutes for 4 p.m. and so Liam logged into the blood battle game. All he needed to do was say log in and he was in. Almost immediately, a bloody sword, thick red blood dripping from the edges, appeared in front of him, his consciousness already pulled away into the virtual reality. "Welcome to Blood Battle. A robotic male voice started announcing, but before it even finished the first line, the voice cracked, the image distorted, and the bloody sword completely disappeared. Instead, in the pitch-black space, a small gift box appeared and Beethoven's Für Elise started loudly playing. "This is it." Liam clenched his fists, his breathing ragged and his heart racing. The small handle on the side of the gift box started slowly unwinding, and in 5 seconds, the darkness surrounding him cracked and shattered, dropping like pieces of black-stained mirror around him. The gift box, the music, and the darkness completely disappeared, and Liam found himself standing, or rather floating, in the very familiar vast bluish-purple sky. He could even already feel the breeze that whooshed past him. Chapter 4, Character Creation. Liam sucked in a big breath of air and shouted, "I am back." Not startling him in the least, a voice suddenly sounded behind him and he immediately swung around to listen to the familiar words. "Welcome, Earthling. I am Ileana. I will be your guide for today." A little fairy with 2 shiny pink wings on her back buzzed up and down, naturally flying in the air. Liam, on the other hand, knew that he was currently flying atop the world only thanks to the fairy's magic. This is Evolution Online, a new and exciting game. Would you like to be an adventurer in our world? Ileana flapped her wings and asked with a cute smile that revealed her dimples. "I agree," Liam simply replied. Though this was a simple question, he knew that this was in fact a very formal consent that was asked from everyone who wanted to enter this game, or rather this world. In his past life, there were even instances where some people said no, and as a consequence, they were not allowed to enter the game for another month. By then the game had exploded exponentially, and those people who were late by a month could only swallow their bitter truth and be left in the dust, permanently lagging behind. Moreover, it was not possible to create separate avatars or change your appearance in this game. Everything from the real world was directly mirrored in-game, and everyone only had one shot at playing the game. It was impossible to make multiple accounts or start fresh all over again. Such a thing was both a blessing and a curse. After finishing with the consent, the fairy then directly started with a brief introduction. "There are different classes." "No need," Liam abruptly cut her short. His entire brain was already filled to the brim with information about the game, and he didn't want to waste his time. There were also no secret advantages or hidden prizes for people listening to the entire boring lecture, so he bluntly stopped the fairy. The pretty Ileana flapped her wings with a small frown on her face. Nevertheless, she moved on to the next topic. I will now be doing a complete scan of your body. Player Liam and your character will be finalized shortly after the scan. Liam nodded as he felt a wave of energy pass through his body. He suddenly felt naked, as if he couldn't hide anything from the woman in front of him, as if she was peering through his very soul. Others might be impressed by the strength exhibited by the fairy, but he knew that this was simply just the usage of a high-level inspection skill. After scanning him from top to bottom, the fairy then spun around and beamed in excitement. Congratulations! You are now ready to enter our amazing and wonderful world, Zian. I wish you the best of luck, Player Liam. Before Liam could react to anything, the space around him distorted once again, and he found himself standing in the middle of a crowded street. Whoa, what the hell is this game, dude? I skipped the tutorial and got into the game real fast, but now I am regretting it. I was playing something else, and I suddenly ended up here. This looks so real, right? I also skipped the tutorial to check it out. I didn't know a video game could be so realistic. Why the fuck am I fat in the game too? Can't I change my stupid avatar? This is too frustrating. Hey, are you disappointed that you couldn't make yourself look good and catfish some pretty chick? What? What are you even talking about? Most of these players are guys. Look around. I can't see a single girl. I guess the gender, age, and appearance can't be changed? Phew. It's better this way. At least when I am with a girl, I know I am with a girl. Alright, let's log out and find more information about the game. I have no idea where to even begin with. Liam was completely surrounded by other players in the novice village, and loud chaotic chatter rang out from all directions. Everyone was trying their best to figure out Evolution Online, since it had suddenly been force-launched in their game capsule without any prior warning. The game was also very peculiar and weird in the sense that it was almost too real. One was completely unable to change any part of their identity and was also able to move and feel things as if they were in the outside world. Such a realistic game was leaps and bounds away from the other video games that were currently on the market. Was this some sort of guerrilla marketing strategy for the game? No one knew anything about it, not even the company the game was produced by. This was very unusual, as such details were heavily advertised at the beginning of every single game. But here, no such information was provided. No one knew where the game came from and how they were able to log into it. Some were even worried if this was similar to a popular anime where the players are trapped in the game and a death in game meant death in the real world as well. So they were a bit hesitant to explore the new game freely. Of course, more avid gamers and other courageous youngsters did not dilly-dally around. They immediately started chatting with the local NPCs to start receiving quests, as that was the obvious start to any game. Liam, as well, was among this group of players. However, he didn't bother aimlessly walking around and begging for quests. He directly walked out of the novice village until the crowd thinned and there was no more ruckus. All right, let me first check my status screen. Chapter 5, Starting Stats. Liam sat on a rock right outside the novice village and opened his status screen. Next to him, a couple of people were already fighting the rabbits and squirrels, which were beginner-level beasts. However, Liam was not in a hurry. In fact, he didn't plan on gaining any experience points for now. He calmly willed his status screen and first took a look at things. Name: Chong Liam. Species: human being. Gender: male. Level: 1-0/200. Title: not applicable. Class: not applicable. Health: 10 out of 10. Mana: 10 out of 10. Stamina: 2. Intellect: 2. Strength: 2. Defense: 2. Vitality: 2. Agility: 2. Underscore. Ha ha ha. Liam chuckled at the sight of his familiar pathetic starting stats and quickly closed the screen. The beginner stats ranged from 0 to 20 depending on each individual's prior condition. Liam being very malnourished and his current body lacking any physical training, it was no surprise that his starting attributes were all on the lower side. After all, he had started with the same stats last time as well, but the difference was that he now knew what to do. This small difference in abilities at the start might not seem much, but ultimately it slowed you down and pushed you to the bottom, even before the game began. Liam shook his head sighing and then opened his inventory. There was a worn-out pair of pants, a shabby-looking mismatched pair of shoes, a sleeveless shirt, ripped here-there, and lastly a rusted longsword. These were the beginner items that were uniformly given to all players on entering the game, all level 1 and all pretty much useless. But since Liam was currently in his underpants, he still took these trash items and equipped everything. The 3 items of clothing each gave 1 defense point, and his previous 2 defense immediately went up by 3 points. This boost wasn't really that much, but roaming around half-naked sometimes ticked off certain NPCs, and Liam couldn't possibly remember each and every single NPC's characteristics. So to be on the safer side, he threw everything on. After the issue of clothing was resolved, Liam then opened the map feature to check where he was. Beginner players typically spawned in novice villages that were on the outskirts of towns and cities, and Liam had spawned in Coldwater Village. It was a small village without many resources in the northern part of the Gresh Kingdom. So an hour walk to the next town. Alright, let me start. Of course, it was also possible to reach the next town in a much shorter time, but Liam took the roundabout main route frequented by villagers and merchants. He did this because he didn't want to come across any wild beasts and be forced to fight them. Not that he was too weak to fight these beasts. Rather, he wanted to keep his slate clean. And so, while others busily hunted for wild beasts and starter quests to increase their level, Liam alone leisurely walked over to the next town. It took him a little longer than an hour, but just like he had wanted, he reached his destination without any hitch. Thankfully, unlike cities, towns did not have any entry fees, so he was also able to smoothly walk past the town guards. If I remember correctly, Liam paused at the entrance of the bustling town and sucked in a deep breath before he scurried along the crowded streets. Compared to the novice village, Basla Town was a much bigger place and had several stores and vendors and even an auction house. Liam directly headed towards one of the more flashy buildings in the northern part of the town, the bank. But he didn't enter inside the bank as it required a certain reputation and fame to borrow money from the bank. Rather, he entered a small building on the same street, just a couple of blocks away from the bank, with a sign that read Leilani's Pawn Shop. Inside the shop, a fat salesperson was sitting who revealed a big suspicious grin as soon as he saw Liam walking in. Hello. Good day to you, young man. What brings you to my small establishment this fine morning? Liam rolled his eyes and bluntly replied, without bothering with the formalities and fake niceties. I need a loan of 100 gold coins. He knew that there was no point in trying to butter up this fatty, as all the loan sharks in the game were extremely cruel and cutthroat. Oh, what a big sum for a little fella like you. Good. Youngsters have to be ambitious. I like your courage, young man. But should I give it to you or not? The shopkeeper rapped on the desk in front of him, looking at Liam up and down. All right, I have decided. This is your lucky day. Though you don't look particularly reliable, I will still loan you this sum of money. What a scam. Liam sneered inwardly. The man was spouting a lot of big nice words, but at the end of the day, it was all lies, because he would just about loan anything to anyone. The interest rate was just that outrageous. Ding. Received a loan of 100 gold coins. Ding. Interest. 10 gold coins a day. Ding. If the full amount is not returned by the end of the week along with the interest, the player will be stripped of everything and permanently imprisoned. Ding. You are the first person to receive a loan. Ding. You have obtained the title Rolling in Debt. Rolling in Debt, when the title is equipped, it gives a 5% bonus on auction house settlements. Liam stared at the notifications, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Even though the title hit a little too close to home, he was still happy with the small surprise bonus. He chuckled wryly and left the pawnshop.